Guys, you're looking at a still shot from today's video from Mojo Adventures. Him and his wife come out and they cover Lake Mead and a lot of different areas over the entire this section of the Colorado River. And what's amazing to me is what's behind him. But again, shout out to Mojo Adventures, guys. Him and Joey from Vegas D-Tech and the guys at Sin City Outdoors gives us the boots on the ground images that tie into our data very good. And I've watched both of these guys, all three of these groups, for quite a long time again. And what we're looking at is one of the tire barriers here, the breakwaters, and Temple Bar Marina is to the right over in this area. Now notice this sandbar right here has almost extended all the way to the tire barrier. It's very important because it shows how quickly Lake Mead is dropping. We're now at 142 plus some change as far as the height. Like the pressure on the hydro dams at Hoover are getting lower because the water pressure is getting lower. But this signifies, and it's a very clear indication of what we're dealing with. Now, another person that we've talked about in our other videos, and Joey from Vegas D-Tech here and his wife here, they do the same thing. They give us the images that correlate with our data. And Joey, you and Mojo, we appreciate it very much. And a shout out to, again, Sin City Outdoors. But this is an amazing image. Now, this is not Joey's video today. He's recorded one, and I'll show you just a still shot from him being out there. It hasn't been processed yet. But look at the 168-foot difference from the top of this mountain to the water surface now. 168 feet. Here's an old boat that has been exposed lately. But again, we're just a couple feet from being record lows. Things are going to start changing very quickly, and the water is receding so fast. And when that happens, guys, it can actually, because the water pressure is like a suction, it can pull mud from these banks. And if it's out into the lake where you have on the base, you have bedrock or limestone, and you had silt build up, the same thing occurs. It all heads downstream towards Hoover Dam, and it also heads and gets buried around the areas of the third straw. Now, this was very interesting. Today, I was watching Mojo Adventures here, and he showed Joey walking off over here in this area doing his video. He gave him a shout out, and they come over and had a very good conversation again. Meeting of the minds. Both of them do the same thing, and they both give us a tremendous amount of, again, visual on the ground videos. Now, again, Joey was videoing, and sometimes it'll be in the morning, maybe late tonight before we get his update up there. But it's very important. And one of the other things, as we go back to this shot, again, you're looking at Temple Bar to the right. Let me move this over just a moment. And the tire barrier, this is almost closed off because of that sandbar. Over here's where they're having to get out. But this sandbar, or excuse me, the tire barrier used to be floating, and it was, I think, anchored down. But right now it's sitting on the ground, and our friends at Sin City Outdoors did a video, I think it was yesterday or the day before, where they tried in their flat bottom, a large flat bottom aluminum boat, to go through here. It was too shallow, so they had to come back out here and go along this area and out on the deeper side. You can no longer get the marina out of here. You can no longer get the bigger boats out. These are smaller craft that I'm talking about. But as the guys at Sin City, father and son team, decided to back up and come along this tire line here, they were filming, and I took a still shot. I want to show you something. And as they turned around, guys, and went back out, these tires normally float. They're on the ground. Look at that. And I think they're larger tires. They're about 5 feet from top to bottom. So you got 1.5 feet maybe out of the water right now, but it's dropping quickly. But they cannot move these now. There would be no use in it because it wouldn't allow a wider opening at the outlets. Again, this is right in the center. But normally floating now, guys, this is not good. And because we're going to see a 2-foot drop again over the next 2 weeks. That's going to expose everything, and it's going to eliminate any outlets out of Temple Bar, and possibly Colville, across on the other side, and much further up closer to Hoover Dam. But look at the shallowness, guys. This used to be where big 60-foot houseboats and stuff could come around these tire wind barriers. And let's take a look at these numbers. This goes to yesterday, July the 11th. We will take a look at the very live update, but this gives us several days in a row. And what we're seeing, guys, is that we're 1042.84. We're a little lower than that today. Again, I think we had bounced down maybe close to the 70s or 60s. And then what they did over here, they cut the output. Notice for almost the entire 14-day period, we were in 11,000, 12, 15, 16, 14. And then suddenly yesterday, they cut the output by a couple thousand cubic feet per second then. And it's been going down really since this 16. But yesterday was a pretty good cut. They have maintained, their inflow rate for 3 days. But this cut is why this 0.09 is such a low number. They're desperately trying to keep this thing at 1042. We said that at 1043. We watched it for over a week, just linger and make some adjustments on inflow and outflow at Mead to balance that, because guys, at 1042 we're already losing low head pressure on Mead. With only 4 turbines in the low head section, after the 12 top turbines are cut off here very quickly, then it's going to create the grid collapse scenarios one after the other. In other words, 80% of the hydropower at Mead, as we've talked about, will be gone. That's going to shift the load to some very aging transformers and grids throughout the desert Southwest. It will, if everything was up and good, if the transformers were new and in good shape and you didn't have quite the 24/7 industrial drain on the system, then it would not be as dangerous. But because of the older transformers out in some of the big grid lines, I'm sure they're not that old, say in the city of Vegas and some of the newer areas inside Phoenix, you know what I mean. But some of these transmission lines and some of the older sections still have 40-year-old transformers. And they're not something you can pick up overnight unless you have a big warehouse full of them. So by switching and losing that 80% of the hydropower, the grid's going to become a problem. And I know a lot of people say that Vegas will be the last one to get any water out of Mead because of that bottom third straw. And that is true. Now, a lot of them are not adding in the fact that you got bottom sediment. And remember the video about the delta flow. In other words, as you were looking behind Joey and Mojo Adventures there, that bank was very wet. But in some sections where it's flatter, it'll get wet, and then it'll go out real far, and you have a long area of wet mud. And that, as the water recedes, the weight will take over it and will slide down into the lake, causing what they call like a delta flow towards the into the river channel and downstream, along with near the third straw and ending up all the way to Hoover Dam. So with the bottom sediment layer, compressed sediment of about 100 feet, and then you add this delta flow that's going to come in each day as the lake shrinks, the mud flows increase. What happens, the water creates a suction. You understand what I'm saying? As it's draining, starts pulling the banks in with it if they're muddy. And some of them are very large and very loose, sitting on bedrock and limestone like that, and they're not really anchored down, so they can slip very easy. So with the third straw scenario, you're going to have, it's still up, even with that sediment, but you're going to have more sediment coming in. And as it gets lower, you're going to see what's called the vortice effect. In other words, the pumps that would be coming from the, or would be pumping into the third straw would have to be very careful, because sediment will start to get into that third straw a long time before it runs out of water. And the big pumps that are onshore, that are really the spigot for the third straw, guys, will have to shut down their pumps to keep them from being destroyed by the sediment. So there's a balancing point all the way around. Nobody's going to escape unharmed. And Mead's holding into that projection that we set up at 2 feet over 14 measurements, again, a foot per day. Now, because of what we saw with the decrease in the output right here from 11 and 12 down to 966, they are kind of maintaining the balance. In other words, it was at like a 0.216 feet over 14 measurements, but then you throw in a 0.09, a 0.08, and that spreads out that average, if you understand what I'm saying. But we're still 2 feet. So we're at 42 and some change. And so we're looking at less than a month. But I noticed something on the video today that I showed you I didn't show you the video. I don't want to do that to Joey or Mojo Adventures. But they were having a lot of wind problems. It kept blowing Mojo's hat off, and I mean, it was blowing there. You got a lot of hot air moving through that area, and what that does, guys, is increase the evaporation rate. Just like hot air blowing across you takes your sweat away. You don't really get to sweat if it's too hot. Anyway, so you've got some of the factors that we have been looking at in our graphs: increased temperature, increased evaporation. So they are playing a balancing game with Powell. This is what's coming in from upstream, and this is what's going out again, a decrease to maintain some head pressure right there. 1040 would be the record low. They're already losing head pressure. Powell upstream seeing cavitation problems. They will not be able to continue their output very much longer. And as soon as it decreases from Powell, you're going to see this 1042.84 start to increase. Now let's look at the very live data. I use both because the live one gives us the almost exact timing of where the lake is at that moment. And this live chart tells a story of its own, guys. Again, started at midnight last night, going down to, we are at the 4 or 5 o'clock hour here, Mountain Time. And notice 1042.84, 1042.89. They drifted a little bit below it today. Here's a 79 and all. But look over here. Of course, they have to release more during the peak hours for the hydro to get downstream, right? But the only way they maintain this 1048.89 is they're down, what, about 80 or 90% of the release flow by this number. And so by the decrease we're going to see in Powell because of the cavitation problems, then these numbers are going to change. And you can tell it by looking at Mojo and Joey from Vegas D-Tech and Sin City Outdoors that this thing is in big trouble. There's no way you're going to get that marina out of that area when you see that depth of that tire barrier. Same thing at Colville. Now, Colville did change their front barrier that kind of was similar to Temple Bar, and they elongated it to widen the outlet channel. They are still in the same problem as 1040, and because the whole lake is at 1040 and change, they are below the level of most of the larger boats. You'll still see some of the boats, 20-footers and stuff going out through the deepest part of these little outlets, but the big ones are stranded, and the lake is continuing to drop very quickly. And let's move from Mead and go up to their battery, which is called Lake Powell. Yesterday, Saturday, July the 11th, guys, the elevation is 3524. Now, their problem, if you remember, used to be at 3490, but because of the cavitation problems and other things, they have set that dangerous level at 14 feet below this at 3510. Just keep that in mind. Average on the daily drops is 0.14 inches. And your outflow, guys, inflow right here is 433.9. Outflow is not quite double, but close at 7.9. Because the rivers upstream from Powell are getting in desperate situations. You got Fontenelle up there, you got Flaming Gorge before that. They're all getting in trouble. This inflow rate will not hold. It cannot, because Powell's going to have to shut some of the outflow down in order to prevent that cavitation from getting any worse. And so they're going to have to either decide to sacrifice Mead or Powell. And with the Bureau of Reclamations, guys, we've seen the narrative bounce from saving Mead, sacrificing Powell, to just the opposite. Now it's kind of up in the air. We don't really know. they're trying to prop up Mead because it supplies so much downstream water for agriculture, for drinking, and so much hydropower that they're about to lose the hydropower. That it's just a delicate balance, guys. They know that it's a losing equation either way, and it's just a prop up. And the videos are obvious, guys, how fast the lake's draining, but it's just a temporary prop up. And as we see the entire planet doing the same thing, you've got to realize that we are in a global Earth age change. Now, just like we did last night, let's take a look at this particular satellite image. And we're looking at it in the infrared. And what you're seeing is this high pressure we've been dealing with. It's going to reach here in just by today and tomorrow, the 600 dm mark, as far as the highest elevation of high pressure ever. And a lot of that has to do with the thermal radiators that are called the Rockies. But because of this eastward drift, look at the moisture coming into California, guys, even into Vegas right here, and even approaching the Lake Mead area coming out of Arizona, coming out of Mexico. New Mexico, you're getting some relief. The panhandle of Texas, East Texas, you're getting a little more. Oklahoma, southern Mississippi, Alabama, look at this, Georgia, Florida, the Carolinas, Tennessee. And guys, there's honestly some pretty bad flooding going on. But while you're getting this water, if you can retain it in some form or fashion, we talked about the big yellow barrel or the tanks you can get and just fill them up with water, have some type of funnel situation built to where the water of the rainwater gets in the tanks. Or some people say they're filling up their swimming pools. Whatever it takes. Water is the blue gold. I mentioned it before. Without it, guys, you're not going to be very comfortable for very long. And the wells and things in many of these states and areas are running dry. They've drilled too far into the aquifers. Now, the Great Lakes, top of Lake Michigan, you're starting to see some input coming in here. Pretty good storm, and coming out of Canada. We got to continue to watch this area right here. Yesterday were two systems, and we talked about if they merged and this low pressure system formed at all, we would start to get more moisture, more flooding, and more possible storms and heavy winds, which always leads to down power lines. And when you get a storm come through like this, dropping a tremendous amount of humidity on you, then your power goes out. It amplifies the situation very quickly. Very good storms lining up along the edge here. And I think a lot of it has to do with, since this high pressure system is drifting east, it's pressing this low pressure or lower pressure and moisture band coming up out of the Gulf into a thinner band, increasing how much water you get per area. And that's what I see. And guys, also, as in yesterday's video, we are watching a little bit of moisture creep in. That's what we're seeing here. The dry areas are here. The El Nino still has a good bit of blockage going on here, but we're starting to see some relief. What a blessing it is. And if you look at the Colorado River system going through here, you can see that is not getting that much yet. They are getting some breaks, but the total precipitable water is what we're looking at. Get it a little closer. And we're starting to see, and what you're seeing is a compressed version of the monsoon season that normally comes. Because of this high pressure system is a little more stubborn than what we normally see. The monsoon season may not be as intense as it has been. Of course, in isolated areas, you could still see flash floods in the desert, in the shallow areas where the soil is very compact, things like that. But just seeing this amount of moisture coming in, this is ground level information, is a very good thing. Still, we're seeing the drought go up. The Arctic, Greenland is very dry as far as precipitable water. And of course, during Arctic winter, this is crazy. Almost none. Almost none. And when you see that, you know the Earth is tipping. It's like the Earth, if you made a candle that looked like the planet but put a wick on both ends, both the South Pole and the North Pole, it would be burning at both ends, and that's exactly what we're seeing. Look at the warmer, drier air being pushed from the El Nino and along the South American coast up into the higher mountains areas. And what we're seeing, guys, this heat is causing record typhoons and storms moving through this area. Records. I mean, one was, the latest one, I think, was Bata, was reaching 162 mile or sustained winds, things like that. That we're looking at record weather events because of the heating of the planet and the way that the equator or the equatorial waters absorb that heat and then transfer it. See the tentacles here reaching all the way down into the Antarctic? That's heat release. Anyway, guys, I'm not going to keep you any longer. Just wanted to give you this information. And just while we're here, look at Saudi Arabia, look at Europe, look at India, look it up into China, across northern Africa. And they're seeing in Europe, guys, through this area, record heat, many deaths that are heat related. Our planet is warming. We're going through a new change, and the seed will survive. We're going to get into that, guys, and I've got some information that I'll share on the new Sumerian History channel that is very heavyweight, deep data, deeper than we've been before, and we've been into some pretty deep detail before. But the new information is groundbreaking, it's important, and it's a lot more difficult to put together than something that I'm very used to. But I enjoy doing both of them. But look for an update very soon on the Sumerian History channel. But guys, remember, our Father loves you, we love you, and this is a major heads up, so you guys be safe.